The lore in Legion is a continuation of Warlords of Draenor storyline. It's a sequel, basically. Think of Legion as The Empire Strikes Back, and think of WoD as Star Wars, A New Hope. Oh, wait, never mind. Forget what I just said. Think of WoW as Star Wars, just in general, and think of WoD as Jar Jar Binks. Lore nerds everywhere, including yours truly, including myself, will give Legion's storyline a standing ovation. Well, actually, a lot more of an enthusiastic ovation than that. A standing ovation, and rightfully so. In Legion, Blizzard is going to be spinning out a lot of compelling and intriguing plot lines. A lot. Turalyon and Alleria. More on them in a few. The South Seas, the Emerald Dream, the Emerald Nightmare, Sargeras' Tomb, and of course, Demon Hunters. And Malfurion's disgruntled and misunderstood brother, some guy by the name of Illidan, who, instead of saying the classic line, "You are not prepared," the new and improved Illidan in Legion is now saying or asking people, "Why are you not subscribed?" I will go over each and every tidbit of the lore very briefly, because this isn't necessarily a lore video, but I'm going to go over each tidbit of information. But first, I want to put a few things in perspective. That's really the purpose of this video, to put the lore in perspective. Even if Blizzard clutches to the bottom rung of the ladder of my expectations, delivers the least of what I expect, I have a good reason to believe, lore-wise, Legion could very well be the best Xpac since Wrath of the Lich King. And if Blizzard does what they used to do, the best in the industry, the best and better than any other MMO, the Cadillac of MMOs, if they do what they did best, and that is tell a great story, lore-wise, Legion could be the best Xpac yet. Legion's storyline is extraordinarily rich and offers many different tasty flavors. They are the Baskin and Robbins, the 32 flavors, 31 flavors, they have more than 31 flavors, the Baskin and Robbins of MMOs. That's what Legion is going to be. It's just so full of lore. Now, the depth and abundance of the lore in Legion is equivalent of Game of Thrones revealing what Bronn metamorphosizes into, and no, it's not a demo lock, what Daenerys plans, or when Daenerys plans, or how Daenerys plans, the Mother of Dragons, how she plans to conquer Westeros, and who is Jon Snow's mother. Those three crucial plot elements through the first 5 seasons of Game of Thrones, all in one season. That's how big and rich and full of intriguing and amazing storylines Legion is. Too much? Maybe. Maybe not. One very reasonable question should come to your mind, because it certainly pops up in mine. Where does Blizzard go with the storyline after Legion? They've said many times, we have other ideas plotted out for World of Warcraft, other expansion packs. Where do you think they're going to go? Because they're basically taking everything out of the kitchen and cooking up a big meal, and there's nothing in the fridge, there's nothing in any of the cabinets, and they don't got any money to go shopping for groceries. So where are they going to go from this? This is the part where you guys put on your tinfoil hats and leave a comment. Tell me where you think the story goes after Legion. And shedding a little bit of your insight isn't a wasteful effort, because unlike a lot of YouTubers, guys, I respond to 100% of your comments. As long as and provided you express your thoughts with intelligence and respect towards me, as well as other people in the comments section. I believe, and I truly believe this, if you guys can take the time out to watch one of my videos, for which I'm very appreciative of, I can take the time and respond to your comments. I'm a small YouTuber, and that is one of the advantages, probably the only advantage that I have over a larger YouTuber, and I'm going to exploit it and take advantage of it as long as I most possibly can. Now, before I go into a little bit of detail about the lore, which is going to be coming soon in Legion, we're going to find out more about that this coming weekend, but a little bit more perspective, I want to go over a little bit more perspective about Blizzard delivering a truly incredible storyline in Legion, especially after the digital car wreck that was Warlords of Drain All the Fun. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to a comedy club. I certainly have. Not as much recently, but had gone for many, many years. One of my favorite things to do. And you ever see an act, a warm-up act, or just one guy who just absolutely bombs? And, I mean, you could hear a pin drop and bounce. That's how bad he is. Anybody that follows that act has got to be funnier, has got to be better. And that's the precise situation Legion is in. Because even if it's not as good as everyone's expectations, I put $1 million that I don't have as a big fat bet that it will be better than WoD. In hindsight, WoD proved to be a puppet show. Not a kid's puppet show, mind you, but a puppet show. Both WoW critics, a guy like myself, and even WoW fanboys subconsciously noticed the puppet strings and began to wonder, who's a real puppeteer here? Puppet show. Not a kid's puppet show, but a puppet show. Is this one point, and this really hammers things home. The cinematic at the end of HFC. Khadgar unquestionably knows a greater evil and more formidable enemy remains at large. He doesn't infer it. He doesn't suggest it. He doesn't play a guessing game with everybody. He flat out says, something else is out there. And I think that's the puppeteer. And I think that's the guy who's maneuvering all the pawns. And who is the wizard behind the curtain? Who is the puppeteer? Basically, I'm asking you guys, who do you think is the end boss of Legion? There are a lot. And I mean, we could go on for quite a while. A lot of possibilities surrounding who this ringleader is. There are a ton of possibilities. You even know a guy like Gul'dan. He's somebody's patsy. He's somebody's courier. He's somebody's messenger. He's somebody's right-hand man. He's not the big guy. Who is it? And there are a ton of possibilities. And that, my friends, is the greatest testament of why Legion's lore is both exciting and intriguing. This is food for thought. This is put on the tinfoil hats and really think about it, because you could talk about it for quite some time. Who's the puppeteer? First point I want to go over about the lore, Turalyon and Alleria. Now, Alleria is Sylvanas Windrunner's older sister. They're both rangers. They're both blood elves, even though she's listed, that is Alleria, she's listed as a high elf. She's blood elf. She's from Gul'dan. And this spins the clock many years, where the Horde first invaded Lordaeron King Tyrannus Menethil II, a.k.a. Arthas's proud father, called in a debt to the Blood Elves. Basically called in his wild card, basically called in a favor and said, guys, I need some help. But the Blood Elves did not see the Horde as a threat, but Alleria did. She despised the Horde. She saw them as a threat. She saw the orcs as a threat. So she went rogue. Her and a group of rangers essentially went rogue and went to go help the king fight the Horde, essentially the orcs. And that's where she met Turalyon. That's where they kind of fell in love, and they were fighting for the same cause. Now, this goes on for quite a bit of time, to the whole Dark Portal incident, and they go back to Draenor before Draenor blows up, and that's where things go crazy. And that's where Turalyon and Alleria kind of get lost. They're hanging with Khadgar, and that's the common link here, Khadgar. Khadgar was a part of this trio. He was kind of like the cock block in the situation. And, you know, these three kind of hung together, so it could have made sense for Turalyon and Alleria to pop up in Warlords, but they're definitely popping up in Legion. And the really interesting thing is Turalyon is a human paladin. Alleria is a Blood Elf Ranger. When the Blood Elves were kind of with the Alliance, things have changed. This is like Austin Powers, you know, coming back from the 60s, except it's not so funny and not so comedic, because things have changed. Sylvanas, her sister, is no longer a Blood Elf. She's now part of the Undead, and she's also part of the Horde. And that's going to create a lot of tension. That's going to make some very interesting choices for these two. How are they going to adjust to this massive change and whatever happened to them? All we know is right before, right around the time that Draenor blew up, they were on an expedition to go back to Honorhold They didn't get ganked, unfortunately, or somehow didn't get ganked, but they went to Honor Hold, and you can kind of find Khadgar around, but you can't find Turalyon and Illaria. Nobody knows what happened to them. Their friends, kind of think like they met on eHarmony, went out on a date, and all of Illaria's friends are like, he's a psycho, he's crazy, he's unstable, he killed her, he chopped her in pieces and put her in boxes and buried her in the backyard, and the dog keeps digging it up. Crazy, crazy stuff. And his friends are like, dude, come on, this is a girl. The Mets were in the World Series. We got to watch the game together. But no, you're MIA. First time in 10 years, you're gone. You're nowhere to be found. Come watch the game with us. Come on, it's just over a girl, man. So their friends are worried about them, and a lot of fans have been worried about them because for years fans have been saying, what about Turalyon and Illaria? What about Turalyon and Illaria? Over and over again at every single BlizzCon, there's always some guy or some girl who asks that question. Now, we don't have to ask the question because we're going to get the answer in Legion. The Emerald Dream is a very large, very vast, ever-changing spirit world that exists outside the boundaries of the physical world and is the realm of the dragon aspect Ishara. Now, keep in mind, Ishara is not what she used to be as of the end of the Xpac Cataclysm. Now, Ishara used to use this realm as a way of watching over and protecting Azeroth, and it's always been kind of like a portal where I guess these dragon aspects, including Malfurion, could enter and travel. And it's also a way that druids are known to go into the Emerald Dream for long periods of time. They say sleep, it's more like hibernate. And they have to kind of do this as a way of getting in tune with nature and getting their powers over nature. Every single druid is kind of required to do this. Now, I say it's more like a portal in the sense that Malfurion use it as a portal to enter into Queen Yashara's palace as well as Exuvius's domain and thwart their plans. So it does seem not only like a realm, but also a travel mechanism. And it's going to be very different, I think, than what players expected for many years, because a big aspect of this, which is the dragon aspect Ishara, has changed quite a bit. So this might also be a little bit different than what players expect. That's just a thought. I'm not flat out saying that. Just saying it's a minor possibility. Exuvius could very well be the final boss. Queen Ishara could very well be the final boss. Those are two candidates. I can't really put my finger on either one, but those are two possibilities. For all we know, maybe even Turalyon and Illaria got these massive powers somehow, and they're the final bosses. But we'll find out more, obviously, at BlizzCon, and more in the beta, and more when Legion does release. Now, the Emerald Nightmare is kind of like a specific area within the Emerald Dream. It's corrupted, it's evil, and interestingly enough, it's mobile. It's kind of like a state within the United States. It's a part of something, but it's moving. It's constantly mobile and moving around, which makes it very dangerous and very interesting and could introduce a very interesting raid element into the game. So it's kind of the counter dark part of the Emerald Dream within the Emerald Dream, but the Emerald Dream is bigger. This is just a part of the Emerald Dream, and that is the Emerald Nightmare. It's going to be interesting. The Emerald Nightmare might be part of the Emerald Dream raid. It might be a separate raid. We don't know. We'll find out more at BlizzCon. We'll find out more in the beta moving forward. Nevertheless, it does bring up quite a few interesting characters like Exuvius and a few others that could possibly be associated with the Emerald Nightmare. There's quite a few interesting ones. There's been a lot of lore about the Emerald Nightmare connected in places like Sunken Temple, the Wailing Caverns, even stitches of Cataclysm in Hyjal. So it's something that's always been threaded within WoW, that is the Emerald Dream and the Emerald Nightmare, and it's something that's finally going to be revealed in WoW after a very, very long time. The Tomb of Sargeras. This is kind of like the evil version of Excalibur from the lore or the legend of King Arthur. Now, the Tomb of Sargeras refers to the remnants of the Temple of Elune in the ancient Caledore city of Suramar, coincidentally, that's the same city where Tyrande, Malfurion, and Illidan grew up. Illidan also being a character very prominent in Legion. Now, this particular tomb was used by the Guardian Egwene to contain the avatar of Sejarus, the evil Sejarus, the avatar of Sejarus, which she defeated in Mortal Kombat. So, WoW is kind of like Game of Thrones in the sense that nobody's really dead till their head is chopped off or their body is burned. And this tomb is kind of rumored to contain a lot of power, a lot of evil power. And so what they did was the tomb was sent to the bottom of the Great Sea by the Sundering, which is when kind of Azeroth blew up and, separated the continents, etc., etc. But was much later raised by Gul'dan. He raised it from the sea. He was like the Moses, just like raised it from the sea, because he believed the body of Sejarus contained the power to make him a god. So you see where this is going. You got the character of Illidan associated with this tomb. You got the character of Gul'dan associated with this tomb, and they're both going to be prominent figures in Legion. The best way to describe the tomb of Sejarus is just simply that, like I said when I first started this segment, it's kind of like an evil version of Excalibur, and it's rumored to contain a hell of a lot of power and sought out by Gul'dan. And it's right in the heart of Legion, which makes things very interesting. Queen Azshara was the beloved ruler of the Night Elves of Kalimdor over 10,000 years ago, and is the current ruler of the Naga. She's beautiful, she's charismatic, she's persuasive in every single way, and she controlled most of the Night Elf society. And she was defeated by Malfurion Stormrage, then the Great Sundering occurred, and now she's associated with South Seas, she's associated with Illidan Stormrage, she's associated with Lady Vashj'ir, and you can see a lot of links in this whole lore to what was going on in Cataclysm. A lot of links, and Queen Ishara is one of them. If you recall the Well of Eternity, you're starting to see a lot of these old themes that WoW abandoned in Mists, which I think was a huge mistake, starting to resurrect in Legion. And if that bridges the gap between Cataclysm and Legion, somehow forgetting MoP, somehow forgetting Warlords of Draenor the fun, Legion could be something absolutely amazing in a lot of different ways, because they're going back to where they left off with a lot of this lore at the end of Cataclysm, that is. And they're dredging up the possibility of a lot of these older characters being end bosses. So this is associated with the Broken Isles, which is where we're going to be questing in Legion. And it's got that South Seas theme, not really pirate theme or troll theme, but yeah, there's that inference of Naga. There's that inference that Queen Azshara might make an appearance. What are your thoughts? Do you think she's going to be a raid boss? Do you think she's going to be the end boss? Do you think she's the puppeteer behind everything? So there's a lot of stuff here. There really is. There's a lot of intriguing plot lines. That's like I said in the beginning of the video. Legion is revealing so many questions that were in WoW lore over the last 10 or 11 years. It's kind of like resolving those three major issues or questions in Game of Thrones. When is Daenerys going to attack Westeros, and how's she going to do it? Who's Jon Snow's mother? And what is Bronn going to transform into? Imagine if Game of Thrones resolved all that within one season. Well, that is what Legion is appearing to offer and appearing to do. Lore-wise, this expansion is going to be better than MoP. This expansion is going to be better than Warlords of Draenor the Fun. And I'll even go as far as say it's going to be better than Cataclysm. So this is really spinning the clock back in a very good way and bringing up some very old, interesting characters and introducing a lot of conflict into World of Warcraft, conflict that's been missing, conflict that's going to threaten Azeroth, I believe, in some way. And here I'm going to go out on a limb and say something really interesting and say something controversial in a sense. I don't think we're going to defeat the end boss in this particular Xpac. I think we're going to be armed and dangerous with demon hunters, with Illidan at our side. We're going to have artifact weapons, and I still don't think it's going to be enough. And it might reface all of World of Warcraft, might spin the clock back, and kind of have a reboot. Have a reboot kind of like what happened in Star Trek with the Star Trek movie series. I'm not saying I'm 100% sure that's what's going to happen. It's a tinfoil hat theory. It's my theory. And I think it's possible. Do I think it's probable? I'll find out more going forward. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say it could happen. It really could happen. And that would mean that the whole direction of the game could completely change. And that could be a very good thing. And that could kind of take us off the beaten path and really bring us into a major, major territory of the unknown, of things that we can't necessarily pull from the lore and say, well, that doesn't make sense, or that would never happen, or I don't see how that's a possibility. Yes, it will be rooted in a lore, but I think it's going to move on and kind of create its new lore. And I think it's got that potential to be something extraordinarily special. Let me know your thoughts. Until then, this is Luxley saying, whatever it is by you, morning, afternoon, or night, do your best to make it great. Luxley, out.